पे कॉपी देती हूँ तब जाएगी। सिद्धि
हाँ जी
at dawn on January
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you can be heard.
Okay, great. I can see that we have a full room. If I'm audible, then we will be commencing. It is a pleasure on behalf of NDIM to have Mr. Richard Rekhy with us today. And in these times where everything has moved to a digital format, KPMG has always been ahead of the curve in terms of being technologically friendly while also keeping strong structural processes. And therefore, a session like this is an absolute pleasure for all of us. And before we commence, just a little bit about NDIM. We were established in 1992. We've been consistently rated among the top institutes in Delhi, in India, by high-powered government committees. We've been affiliated to the Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, and consistently year on year, we are ranked among their highest institutes for admissions, for placements. And Mr. Rekhy, I would also, it gives me pleasure to tell you that many of our former students have been part of the KPMG team and have done quite well in their association with KPMG. Some of these students I also remember. And in general, NDIM has always maintained standards of excellence for its students, not only within the classroom, but in creating citizens who are aware and who can be future leaders and managers, which is something that I believe is especially necessary right now. With the world constantly in flux, it is important it is important for us to recognize strong leadership and just that. And before we continue, I would like to give a brief introduction of Mr. Rekhy. Mr. Richard Rekhy is presently a board member of KPMG Dubai. He is the former CEO of KPMG in India, where he was a member of the global board and the council of KPMG International. And with over 36 plus years of experience in consulting and professional services, with his experience in Arthur Andersen, Ernst & Young, and then KPMG, where he's held leadership positions and spearheaded projects. He's also a qualified chartered accountant. He is a mentor. He is an angel investor. He mentors startups and young professionals. Sir, all of us are young professionals. So this is quite an honor for all of us. And sir, you've been associated with a non-profit organization which focuses on education for the underprivileged and senior care, which is also something that NDIM has also championed over the years through its Shikshit Bharat Abhiyan, where we provide education to the underprivileged from all around Delhi. So you've been a member of the All India Management Association Board of Governors. You've been the member of the Board of Governors of IIM Sambalpur and the CEO of the Collective Advisory Council and one of the founder members of Will Forum for India. And your over 36 years of experience is worth its weight in gold. And sir, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to have you here. And over to you, sir. Sir, you are not audible. 1 second. Now you're audible.
Okay. Ayush, thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. And it's truly a privilege to come and speak to youngsters. In fact, something that truly motivates me is actually speaking to youngsters and interacting with them, because obviously, number one, they're the future of the country and also where we are standing today. In many ways, as I look at the world today, which is a very much changed world. I mean, I was just thinking, reflecting to myself, 2 months back, it was a very different world. We were going out, meeting people, doing all sorts of things, traveling, and then suddenly everything crashes in front of us. And I think it is in this context that everybody now, I mean, there's an overload of webinars, the way I see it. People talking on business continuity, people talking on what is the new world going to look like. And I just hope this does not become another repetition of something that you've already heard and something that you've gone through. I will try to keep it very simple because my style is very simple. There is no jargon, there is no big language. There will be few things which I will talk about, and we'll take it from there. So Ayush, could you move to the first slide, please?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, this is the world. It is changing so fast. And the point I want to put out here, even before COVID came in, this entire technology has actually been so pervasive into our lives, into everything that we do. With Industry 4.0 coming in and everything else coming in out there, life is already changing. But as we know, a crisis actually brings a faster adoption. I remember addressing a group of vice chancellors on the new education as to what it's going to look like post Industry 4.0. And I spoke about, online education and everything else which comes with it. And I think now people have been forced to go there, even if they didn't want to. So in the more Western parts, at the higher level, education is already quite a lot online, but I think in India, one is seeing a greater adoption there. I just thought I will go through a few things with you, like top end, what are the 4 or 5 things one is looking at. today we had all technology companies, a lot of money going into it, technology companies, the Googles, the Apples, the IBMs, everybody, up there with huge amount of funding and sort of dominating the world. But I think going forward, biotech is going to be a very, very important area, because I think this pandemic has showed one thing, that we were not ready from from the pharma, from the healthcare perspective, to deal with an issue of this scale. Though if one looks at it, even way back, George Bush, the president of America, and Obama spoke about it, that a pandemic is going to happen and we need to prepare for it. Of course, they didn't know when, and they were trying to put resources together, but that somehow dropped off because nothing happened. But I think now, biotechnology is going to be the big area where people are going to focus on, because this pandemic is not the first and the last. It is going to now become a part of our life, and we'll have to learn how to live with it and how to actually deal with it. So what is happening now, actually, two big things are happening. One is the health problem. The other one is our short-term rights as individuals. Do we want our privacy? Are we being tracked? The other one is the change of work. How are you going to work from home, which has changed, or not working from an office. So all the youngsters sitting here thinking that, okay, when we start work, will we go into this big fancy office? I don't know how that is going to pan out, honestly, because I can tell you a lot of companies are re-looking at their real estate options. They're completely looking at it completely. I thought I'll put the scenario before I start. Retail changes are happening. All our buying habits are changing. Consumerism in many ways is dead. People are realizing that minimalist is fine. We can live with it and we are quite happy with it. The one thing that people are really missing is we are all now connected through this internet, right? People are missing the in-person meeting. So I do not know when that will happen and how it will happen, but I'm sure today, all these, like Zoom, we are on Zoom today, all these companies are right up there in terms of valuation, in terms of adoption. Will it continue? Time will only tell. There is going to be a lot of changes to the education side, because that's where you all are interested, because it's all going online. So I think it's important. The one point that I've always advocated, and I will advocate again, technology to deliver on its promise, the most important, and promise of betterment of humankind, I think it needs a cultural and moral compass. Very important. So the education system that we have today will have to be interlaid with a huge overlay of integrity, of how we teach business ethics, how do we actually inculcate that level into people. And that's where I'm seeing a crossover, where you may have the people who are studying STEM actually learning arts and history and literature. There is going to be a cross mobilization, because imagine doing historical research with artificial intelligence, or trying to adopt some new technology without even understanding the underlay of implication can have on society. I think both need to move together. So I think that is going to be a big thing. The second one is in extreme adoption of technology. What has happened now after this lockdown? Literally, most companies moved PCs and other machines into people's homes, because people had to work from home and they had no facility earlier. So they've done it on mass scale in 1 or 2 days. Most companies, especially the back offices, because they couldn't stop working, because they're working for international companies, and India couldn't renege on its promise of delivering. So a lot of these things happened, and that raised a big issue around cybersecurity. So while the company may be secure from a cybersecurity perspective, were the homes as secure when these systems and machines were put in there? So what I'm trying to say is that on one side you have a challenge, on the other side you have opportunity. So it depends how smart you are and how can you take advantage of some of these opportunities that come up. The mobile phone that each of us use and may be using now is going to become even more powerful than what it is today, because that is going to control our life, and that is going to take us to a new level. Ayush, can we change the slide, please?
Oh, sir.
So this slide tells a full story. They say now picture says a few words. I don't know what I'm going to say on this slide, but I can only say one thing, that business as usual is no longer an option. Business as longer an option. You can see the economy is not, this is not the latest issue, but this is one issue before. The planet Earth, I mean, never in the history, where at least in my 36 years, have I seen ever the world closing. Crises have happened. Internet came, a lot of companies disappeared, let me tell you. So this is not the first, you know, people say unprecedented and everything fine. I mean, but I don't think, I mean, when internet came in, a lot of companies disappeared from the world because they did not adopt. There are so many examples of them. One of the big examples is Kodak, which did not change with time, though they invented the first digital camera way before its time. So on one side, we have this threat of coronavirus. Then we have everybody gone into a lockdown mode, the whole world gone into a lockdown mode. Some of the countries, in fact, China, where it started, is already opened up, which is like surprising. But they are there, they're back in business. But who are they doing business with when there is nobody to do business on the other side, because everybody else is locked down? And then companies going bankrupt. I mean, the spate of companies and the names of the large names, the big names. In fact, airline industry is the biggest hit, and most of them actually have come out and said, somebody saying I've got 2 months cash, somebody saying I've got 3 months cash. And what is going to happen to the airline industry? In fact, Virgin Australia has already declared bankruptcy. There are a number of J2, I mean, number of companies have already, all these brands that we were used to buying are bankruptcy or on the verge of declaring. So there is an entire set of companies who have already declared the bankruptcy. And below that, there is even a bigger number of companies which are on the verge of bankruptcy. So a new set of companies are going to emerge. So this crisis has had a huge impact on the way the global economy is in its current form. And the way I see it is that we may need to go back to the basics where we started, and that may be the new normal. Because if the whole world is going to shrink, if the global economy is going to shrink, if everything is going to be at some different percentage to what it is, everything around us is also going to change. So there's going to be a salary cut of 20% in people's comps. I think everything else is also going to be 20% cheaper. Hopefully, we're just hoping. The oil prices in India don't indicate that. But I think that is going to be the new norm which will come up there. Actually, at this time, what is two things which I can see emerging out of it? There is going to be a big push towards entrepreneurship and these startups. I mean, all the radical ideas coming out of the startups are going to be the future of the world. So these, because I work with a lot of startups and I see how they try and get, I mean, something are very obvious, but we have never thought about it. They actually coming and finding out these white spaces and be able to take it. So I think that is very important. The other one which I wanted to say is that this crisis, COVID-19, can be looked at in 4 fronts. Number one, the COVID itself, because there are people dying, and these are real people dying. Number of deaths, nobody can predict. Number two, there have been too many variables. Today, somebody sitting as a CEO of a company or sitting in senior leadership will have one of the most challenging jobs to do, because he or she will too many variables to deal with. And obviously, when there are too many variables, what happens is a sense of fear actually engulfs people and saying, should I do something? Decision making becomes a challenge and companies can get stuck in where they are. So this requires a very calm. The character of leader is going to come out today, as the true leaders come out in times of crisis. And also the leader who doesn't react, but who remains a calm presence in this crisis, understands the situation and then responds to it in a very different way than somebody who would just react. Okay, there's a problem, let's deal with it. No, I think you have to respond to it yeah.
I would just interrupt you for 1 second and say Mr. Nitin Malik has also joined the conversation. He is also one of our special guests.
Okay, sure.
The registrar of Ambedkar University, and he has been an important pillar of GGS IPU for very, very long. So It is quite a
Good
pleasure.
morning, morning,
Welcome.
Richard, and good morning, everyone over here. I'm sorry I had to just enter in between, but as the Richard was taking the webinar, so I thought I should join because the another thing which Richard will also appreciate and will be happy to know it that I am also from your college only, the Hansraj.
Okay, okay.
So,
Thank you. So it's a great privilege, sir,
yeah,
to
so
be.
that is all. I mean, like we are the same element. Then when I came to
Yeah.
know about it, I cut down. I was traveling to my office. I immediately stopped in between and I said, "Let me be first connected and hear Richard, and then I'll." Because Richard is such a personality that in our Hansraj College we have a wall of fame, and in which the Richard photo is picture is very much highlighted over there. So
Thank you
it
so
is
much.
really
So,
appreciable to hear from you. Means like it's really appreciable, and congratulations to
Thank
NDIM
you.
for hosting such a webinar. Please go ahead.
thank you, sir.
Thank-
Thank you, and
thank-
thank you for joining, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So,
Sorry for interrupting. Yeah.
yeah, okay, Mr. Malik, thank you very much for your kind words. Truly appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. So the point I was making, the four things are going to get impacted here. One is the COVID itself, people are dying. Number two is people are getting sick, people are getting off. The other one which I can see is the health problems to individuals, mental health, because of this lockdown. Some people are not used to it. So, your ability to deal with these situations is very, very important, because one thing that has come out is that people, like I always used to say that we had a very hectic life while I was in my professional, working first career, part of my career, where it was really hectic. I mean, putting in 17, 18 hours on a daily basis, it was not easy. And I'm not saying it for the sake of saying 17, 18 hours, I mean it. And it was a really tough life. And yet I found ways in which I could de-stress. And that's very important. And if people don't get this de-stress into their lives, I think it's going to be important. And it's good for students, actually, as you are going into your life. You must find a hobby. You must find something that you can de-stress yourself from time to time. Work smart so that you could use your time effectively and you can bring a meaningful balance between your work and life. I call it work-life harmony. How do you bring that in? It's very, very important as you get into your jobs, as you get into even in your studying career, how do you actually do it? The other thing which is going to get impacted is the economy. Economy is going to be impacted hugely actually with this crisis. And it's not the Indian economy, it's the global economy. Though if you ask me from a GDP perspective, I think India has taken the biggest hit amongst all the countries. And but India is resilient. It is got great macroeconomics, and I'm sure it will bounce back at some time. But we are where we are. And the fourth is the most important one, which is the social impact that this is going to have. Because there are going to be many people who are going to lose their jobs. And the social impact will need to be dealt with. And there is no one person, the government or somebody who can deal with it. I think society as such, that is the government, the business, the academia, the civil society would need to come together and say, how do we deal with this crisis? Some of it I'll go through in terms of my presentation because the topic is skilling and this thing, we will go through it. But I think that I just thought I'll lay the context before I get into the other part of my presentation. Okay, Ayush, next slide, please. So this is the impact of employment. This is the 31st March data, which is there. You can see some things written out here. COVID-19 crisis likely to hit 29 lakh jobs in Indian aviation and dependent sectors. Coronavirus exports may go down. Lakhs of people lose jobs in tourism. Actually, the one point that I want to make to you out here, any industry that has a depreciating asset, just listen to these words, please. Any industry that has a depreciating asset is going to be the biggest hit. For example, a hotel room, if it is not sold, it's gone. The revenue is gone. An airline ticket, if it is not sold, it's gone. The plane goes that much more empty or less full than what it goes. So you don't get it back. And this depreciating in the cars will be a similar one. And there could be automobiles, that is. And you could take it to many other industries in little different formats. But these are, I mean, any industry that is depreciating and losing its revenue is going to be the hardest hit because it is going to lose revenue straight away. while on one side we're seeing all these job losses, I mean, don't want to paint a picture that the world is completely collapsed. I think new jobs are being created, a new world is getting created, a new normal is getting created, and those new jobs, we'll discuss about it. I'm not discussing so much about jobs as about what are the skills you require, what is the attitude you require in this new post-COVID world. I think that is going to be more important than anything else. We are going to, to be very honest, it is like going into a storm. And anybody who goes into a storm, the person who comes into the storm is not going to be the same person who walked into that storm. So similarly, anybody who's in this job market today, when he comes back to work, is not going to have the same job. It's going to be very different. And here I'll give you one small example just to illustrate this point. There was a company called Fuji Films, which along with Kodak dominated the film. They used to make these films for taking cameras. I mean, I don't think none of you guys would ever have seen those cameras. But, people used to say Kodak moment and all that. So there was a company called Fuji Films, which was equally dominant as Kodak, or had it was a Japanese company. Kodak died. But what did Fuji Films do? They both sat together and said, what is our strength? And they found that chemical processing was their strength. And they went into cosmetics, ladies' cosmetics. And today, now this company already has $35–40 billion turnover as a cosmetic company and a wellness company. So the point which I'm trying to make, a film-making company going into a very different line, but with the same skills, chemical processing. The point I want to highlight is, it's about the quality. What they were known for was chemical processing, and they actually went forward and looked at it from that point of view. So I think that is something which I just thought I will leave it out here. But the important point I want to leave here is that we are going to go through some pain. There is going to be new learning. Some of it is going to be easy, let me tell you. Some of it is going to come pretty easily, but some of it is going to be really hard. And the people who are willing to make that effort and actually take that will actually come out much stronger than what they got in, because the world that is going to emerge is going to be much stronger out here. Ayush, next one.
Sure.
So the title of the slide says it all. Time has changed. It's completely changed. You need to reimagine your job. Reimagine completely what is there. Your degrees and your certificates do not translate to your skill. So you may be saying, I'm an MBA, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm an engineer. These do not translate to skill. This is knowledge that you have gathered through your studies. All that you have done in school and college have little application to your work life. Not that this was too much different before, but I think it is more prevalent now than before. Definition of skill has changed. Earlier, I would say, oh, I'm an accountant because that is my basic qualification. I'm a chartered accountant, or I'm a marketing professional. That's no more so. That's no more the skill. The skill is going to be how aligned are you to the themes of the sector, subsector? How do you understand the new domains that are coming in? That is going to be your skill. So you can't say I'm a marketing professional. Marketing doesn't make a sense. But you can say, okay, I'm very good in alliance marketing, or I'm very good in, a particular sector of accounting or whatever. So I think the whole thing which comes out, I am very good in accounting in the telecom sector. So that becomes a skill now. People will hire you for those skills. Generalist is dead. I used to say it earlier also. And this is the world of specialists. So people like me got away actually. We didn't need to go through the tough times that you all have to go through. So what I would say here, the first thing you need to do is unlearn what you have done, relearn and then relearn. I think this, if everybody thinks that at 25 your education stops, I think it's lifelong learning. That is one thing that I would like to leave behind. Learning will never stop, and if it stops, your growth stops. I can only tell you that. In view of the above three titanic changes, we have to build yourself into a parallel academia, yourself. So you become a university for yourself and say, how do I educate myself with more things which will make me relevant. So you're doing an MBA today. So what more can I make myself, study so that I become much more relevant to the job market? And what makes you unique? And do things that you like, because if you don't do things that you like, you're going to have a big challenge. So new industries and sectors have emerged: e-commerce, digital payments, data, 3D printing, alliance sales, which was never thought about before. It's become a very important area which you look at. Look at your resume, because I've looked through a number of resumes while I was there hiring a number of people. The resume would say, okay, I'm so-and-so, I've done this qualification, and I was part of this, club, entrepreneurship club, I was part of the marketing club, I was part of the leadership team or whatever in the colleges. That is not going to be helpful anymore. That is just one part of the story. I think it's going to be things like, do you know digital payment? Do you know e-commerce? Do you know data science? What are those other skills that you have acquired as part of your learning? That is what people are going to look for in your resume, and just not that I was part of this committee and that committee. The one point which we all looked at when we go and join a job, we go and look at all these glamorous companies that are out there advertising, and you say, okay, I want to be part of this company. I want to be part of Make My Trip. I want to be part of Unilever. All the consumer companies that you bought from, you would say, I would like to work for them. I think now we should have a relook at it. Anything that looks nice as a consumer company, because you're also a consumer, you will have to look and see which are the other companies which will actually provide me more job stability, which will provide me. So I would say healthcare, pharmaceuticals, lending, education. These are the sectors which are going to, one needs to look at more carefully, and not just the glamorous ones, which we got so touched with our own way in which we operated. Next slide, Ayush, please. So this is, a low touch business. We are all being forced to change. They say crisis always forces early adoption. One has seen it. I mean, it's happened already. I mean, moving people to work from their home has never happened. In fact, let me tell you, when I was running KPMG, there was one big project I had in mind as to how to get people outside the office to work from anywhere. Actually, we brought a policy, work from anywhere. And I went to HR and said, tell me what is the cost I can save, because my rent has to go down. Because if people don't want to come, we don't need these huge offices which we are paying. But that has happened now. And I don't know whether some of you have read what TCS has said. By 2025, they will have 75% of their people work from home. So this is going to have a huge impact on the real estate market, because people are more secure in their homes, they are more safe, the social distancing gets done. So I think trust will be a big element that will come out. How much do we trust our employees? And we will move to a very different system of outcome-based work than just hours-based work. Reskilling of resources. So you have to be future ready, because the future of work is different. So one will have to reskill, retool ourselves completely. Smart manufacturing will come in, because as you may have read somewhere, India is trying to attract many companies. So smart manufacturing will emerge. So the entire thing around artificial intelligence, 3D, IoT will be there. Artificial intelligence, let me tell you, I visited China about 1.5, maybe 2 years back on a business trip of trying to understand how they have adopted technology in their businesses across sectors. I came back completely amazed. I mean, I don't want to waste your time telling you the examples that I picked up, but they were baffling actually. And these are real life, whether it was education, whether it was insurance, the way they have used technology to grow their business and grow their valuations was completely amazing. And I think artificial intelligence is going to be the core of all business. Every single business, irrespective which sector you are, is going to have artificial intelligence at the core of its business. Industry 4.0 is not dead. It is even going to be even more relevant than what it was earlier, because there was very slow adoption. Just imagine if we had all those 3D printing machines today. We'd had no problem in printing those masks. I mean, face masks could have been printed in your home, and the distribution channel could have easily been adopted in a much more different and effective way. But it didn't happen in India, and we have not benefited from some of those Industry 4.0 So very few companies adopted it. I've seen a few companies doing it well, but those are very few. And obviously the automation boom that is going to take place. And like they say, survival brings out the best in each of us. And I think this is where we're going to see ourselves. Ayush, could we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
So what are we going to see? We are going to see a gig economy, which was already emerging, but the gig economy will see mainstream adoption now. Full-time jobs are going to reduce. People are going to look and say, okay, and even the guy, like suppose you're super specialized. A company may not have an 8-hour job for you. It may have 2 hours or 3-hour job. So you can sell your time effectively to another company for the next 2-3 hours. So a gig economy is going to adopt where people will use people on time and pay them. Remote and digital working will become the new norm. There is no question about it. Young graduates like you all who are going to come into the job market will need to learn yourself and come prepared. And I'm going to go through a whole slide on that. So please wait for that when I come there. But what is most important is your personal brand. Very important. I think never has this personal brand ever come. So we all represented a company. For example, I represented KPMG. So everywhere I went, I had the KPMG card. That was my first calling card. So because I'm KPMG, people would even be willing to talk to me. But today, more important than that is going to be your personal brand. So I just want each of you to start working on it. Start working on your personal brand, who you are, and what do people, like you look at a brand. If you look at any brand, what does it represent to you? It represents something, right? Quality, consistency, it will deliver on its promises. So you also need to become a brand who actually goes there. Salaries will become unfixed. So there won't be any way, okay, every month I'm going to get this X salary. Salaries are going to become unfixed. Perceptive value will be very critical. How do people perceive the value you bring? Very important. New jobs are going to be created, or very different kinds of jobs are going to be created. So on one side, you'll see the death of some jobs. On the other side, you'll see some great new jobs getting created. Asian economies outside China will, of course, get manufacturing. So because if manufacturing is going to move out of China to some extent. In fact, I was talking to a China expert the other day saying it's not going to be so easy to unbundle the manufacturing out of China because many companies have hugely invested into it. And are they going to give up everything and walk away? Anyway, time will tell. The jury's still out on that. Fitment will overrule qualification. So your fitment for the job is going to be more important than, just example. So if somebody is to go and do sales, do you need to be an MBA to do sales? Or do you have other skill sets which may be required? I'm just giving like a very bland example, but I just thought, so fitment of the person, is he good at the job? Will help you get the job. Reskilling and e-learning adoption shall emerge even faster. Companies have realized that you can do your entire training through e-learning, and I think that's what is going to be there. Like I have said earlier, entrepreneurship will be the order of the day. Continuous learning will be part of the job. Very important point I thought I'd leave here. How does one operate in a contactless environment? Very important. And I think that is the one point I think I want each of you to reflect, because each of us are used to these physical meetings. We go before an interviewer, sit before him or her, and express our way. But today you're going to sit before a machine, and you're not going to see the exact facial this thing of that individual. How are you going to sell yourself? How are you going to behave in this kind of environment? And how are you going to close deals? If you have to close a sales deal, how would you close it? Just you're interacting with the machine. On the other side is a man who you don't see fully. Because many times, the one thing which I learned very early is that when you sit with people, you understand from where they come. Because when you see them, you can understand whether they are accepting what you're saying, their body language, their facial expressions, and then you know whether to push the accelerator or not. So I think that is going to be the order of the day. So basically, you need to reimagine a new world with infinite opportunities. That's the way I would end this screen. Next slide, please. So this is basically what I'm talking about, upskilling and reskilling. These are what the corporates will be doing. If they're already not started doing it, they need to protect their own business from these market changes. They will need to mitigate the job losses that are there. So if you've got latent talent sitting there who don't have a job today, how would you retrain, reskill that same resource because you like them? They were good at the job they were doing earlier. How can we retrain them so that you can keep all these employees engaged? And how do you attract potential talent into your company? It's going to be a very different game that is going to get played out there. And if companies do it, they would be able to improve, of course, staff productivity. I don't know how many of you have read it, but they have said that working from home has improved the productivity of people. We have not seen whether it improves the productivity of companies because no company is selling at the moment. Most companies are, other than the essential sales companies. In fact, I was talking to a company, a person who's into the agriculture sector. And he was telling me he does funding in the agriculture sector where he gives loans to farmers to do it. He's saying the revenue for him has doubled in this period because the entire new model of sales has come out from because these farmers are now directly selling to the consumers using aggregators, very professional aggregators out there. So they're getting far better returns. Their sales have gone up. They have got money at a very reasonable rate of interest and they're able to invest it in their business. So what I'm trying to say, the farm sector, which actually 65% of India depends upon, we need to get many more people off it. It's a different matter. But today, 65% of the people depend on it. And if you're able to crack this, I think India could have cracked a huge code for itself in its own development and growth. So it's just not for the farm sector, but it's for all of us. So the companies will need to see how they can best use their talent in upskilling, reskilling their current resources to make them relevant in the new context. So it's going to benefit the company. So while the individual benefit, I think the company is going to benefit. Ayush, should we go to the next slide, please?
Yes, sir.
So this is, some of the workforce of tomorrow, the trainings that will go on, things around e-commerce, cybersecurity. I just don't want to get bogged down into this slide because there are some very interesting slides coming in the next few months. Big data analysis, but I just thought to paint a picture of where this new, so everything you see is very much technology related, machine learning, RPA, blockchain. Just to share with you, one new platform has been created for telephone and it has got the biggest blockchain. It is just going to launch. It's going to be launched commercially very soon. I cannot talk about it much, but it's going to launch very soon. But it's got the biggest blockchain application ever anywhere in the world. And it has been developed with India. And so it is something, good news from a platform on which you can make telephone calls and use it for telecom sector. So it'll be a big game changer out there actually. Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, human capital management. These are going to be some of the things which people will need to get trained, which people will need to move on. And from a company's perspective, they will need to invest in agile assessment solutions for employees who are going to be in remote. Imagine not seeing your employee at all. And how are you going to assess him or her for the work that they have done? So new tools will have to get developed of how you look at it. Like I said, it's going to be all outcome based, but how do you look at from a character perspective and values and how they're displayed? All those will come up in these new tools as they get developed. Contracting roles are going to be very important. There are going to be more contractors. Focus on cross-functional skills, very, very important. Cross-functional skills are going to be the order of the day. It's going to be a huge kind of thing. And looking for self-employed people who can take assignment-based roles. So people who have left their jobs and are doing consulting on a standalone basis, they are going to be back in the business, call it the gig economy or whatever, but similar kind of people who have got deep specialist knowledge who will be used by companies when need. I think the biggest hit in this whole thing is going to be the middle management. The middle management, and it is not coming just because of this. Even before that, if you see the job losses were happening at the age between 40 to 50, where people have not really hit it to their peak of their careers, but in the middle management, and they were outdated in their skills and they were not up to mark and they were getting very high salaries for what they were doing. So now this middle management positions are going to be at a great risk as we go forward. So that is going to be a very important. The other one, which is going to be gaming, is becoming a big thing actually. Work from home, virtual teams, how do you work with it, the project management around it. The whole education sector is going to undergo change. Education and learning both are going to undergo change because of the technology. Okay, Ayush, can we go to the next slide, please? So what are the most impacted industries? They are travel, tourism and hospitality. These are no-brainers actually. Automotive is already suffering in India. It's going to even suffer worse now. Oil and gas, if there's no consumption, then where's oil and gas? The biggest consumer is the automobile sector and the planes, the jet fuel. If both are not going to fly or drive, the oil industry is going to, I mean, there are people saying, will the oil and gas industry ever come back? And if it is not going to come back, then what is going to come back? So then is it going to be electric vehicles? Is it going to be, alternate energy? All these are going to have big role plays which will actually come out. Real estate sector is going to get hit. Manufacturing, if India gets its act together, then for India, manufacturing may see a better thing. Construction obviously will go if real estate is consumption. Real estate is going to be a hit. I think construction itself will get hit. Retail is going to get hit in a big way because the way, see, there's a very small percentage of Indians who, the 1% I would say, nothing affects them. I mean, they are the top echelons of society. They are inflation proof or recession proof. But the rest, where we go and shop, normal people like us, what we have learned is, in fact, I was looking to, I need all my suits. I'm just giving a small example, very personal example, and all these fancy shirts and ties I have because I'm coming and speaking in jeans and t-shirt and at home, unless I have to do a webinar or whatever, then you dress up. But today, considering where life is going to be, the consumerism has come down, the requirement of people, they've realized that we can live with less. So retail is going to take a big hit before it comes back actually. And when it will come back, God knows. The industries that are going to have a medium impact is going to be the banking and financial services. And in India, this can have a larger impact. This could even hit in the most impacted, the banking, because we never got our banking sector act together. If you look at Europe and other countries, they cleaned up their banking sector post 2008 and 9. Unfortunately, we did not. And we will suffer the brunt of that in the banking sector. Education will have an impact. The ones who are fast and able to adopt and move on to technology will benefit because I can see a boom coming there in a very different way. But the ones who will not adopt will have challenges. Textile, of course, will get hit. Agriculture, to some extent, like I said, there will be parts of agriculture will succeed, but these will have a medium impact as we go in. The winning industries, biotech, like I said, biotech is going to be right there on top. E-commerce is going to flourish. I do not know how many of you are aware, but China was developing a cryptocurrency. The media industry is, somebody put a question on media industry. So media industry is definitely going to get impacted in many ways because the whole advertising and media is going to get challenged. So there'll have to be a very different way in which the media also how about mental health? Yeah. So I did talk about mental health, but I think media industry is going to be hugely impacted the way it is. Advertising is not going to be the same. Just to share with you, when I've done a lot of work in the media industry. When I was in Arthur Andersen was the #1 firm in the media industry and did a lot of work with the largest advertising companies in the world and media companies in the world. And I can tell you at that time, they were living a lazy life because they were earning a 15% commission and they were working on that commission and making a huge amount of profit. And then what happened, people said, we don't want to pay you this 15%. Now you pay us as per consulting. And at that time, I remember we advise them move to our model, which is ours, start having those kind of systems in place, what consulting firms have. They just didn't want to put it in place. And they went through their pains. They came out of it slightly, but now again, they're going to be hit very badly. Mental health, I spoke about it. There are going to be people who are, this is a real life problem. People are getting impacted. So this is, so the whole healthcare system, pharmaceutical, these are going to be the big beneficiaries, but it has to be done very differently. Today we are reacting. We need to put much more investments. Most countries will need to improve their percentage of the investments of GDP that they do into healthcare. They will have to reduce other sectors and actually put it in this sector, because this is going to be the, I mean, it's just brought out, right? One virus could bring the entire world to its full stop. I mean, to a stop. So forget about all the wars in the world. I mean, World War II, yeah, creativity will be required. So I'm going to come to that slide. So if you can just hold some of your thoughts. I'm going to talk about the skills, what are required. So we will talk about that.
Sure.
Then the data science, logistics, internet, these are the ones which are going to actually benefit. Online training, online education are going to be the big beneficiaries. I think supply chain has been challenged. Supply chain will also have big opportunities, because the whole supply chain around fruits, vegetables, groceries are going to be there. I think the social sector, somebody's asking a question on social sector. Yes, social sector is going to benefit out of it, because there is going to be a huge amount of effort put on this sector. There will have to be a lot more investments. So I think the point is, how are countries, governments and corporates and individuals going to react post-COVID? Nobody knows it. Because first of all, when they come out, the first 1 month is going to be assessment damage. You're already doing it, but when you come back to your workplace and you see everything around you in a very different shape, you will have to find out, what am I going to do and how am I going to see? The biggest challenge most companies have, do they have enough cash to last them the next 2 years? Because this is not going away. This is not a 3 months game. It's not a 6 months game. It's not a 1 year game. It's going to last at least 2 years. And I wish I'm not wrong in saying that it's going to last longer than 2 years. But do they have enough cash and working capital to last them the 2 years? Very important. And I think that's what companies will need to work out. So what I've given you is only an illustrative list. Actually, it's not a complete list. There could be many more industries, and like I could see many of the questions coming up. This is more illustrative of where we are going. And let's move on to the next slide, please.
I just wanted to point one thing out for all of our students. This is also a masterclass in presentation and a visual depiction of ideas. This presentation is also passive learning for them.
Thank you. So what are the opportunities for India amidst this COVID crisis? I think India has the greatest opportunity in terms of coming out of COVID much stronger. In fact, the world is looking at India as the savior of the world. Never ever in the history of India, there were earlier, let me not but India is going to be looked at as the final country which is going to deliver the world out of the sickness. Because when the vaccine is developed, Indian pharma companies who are completely ready are going to actually take India to a very different level. India is going to bring the sickness out of people. So I do not know, there are a number of pharma companies who are ready to manufacture this vaccine the moment it's developed. India will be the vaccine provider to the world. With that, India pharma will be back on the top as the sector. Somebody saying which sector? Pharmaceutical sectors is going to be one of the big gainers post-COVID. And I think that's something which is there. Thousands of companies are mulling their China strategy, not necessarily exit, alternate. And I always keep saying that India in the first instance should become the BCP to the world. That would be the best. So you create your BCP to the world and then you move on to the next one. And then you can get into your manufacturing and other things, because a lot of things need to be done for India to actually become global, part of global supply chain. A lot of effort, because let me tell you, I have personally worked with the government of India a lot on their ease of doing business, on their state government reforms. And as KPMG, we have done a lot of work around almost every initiative that this government from 2014 has launched. So one knows the challenges that the governments have, the difficulties they have in implementing some of the things they want to do. So it is not easy. It's very easy in a corporate to do it. You know, I've run a company, so I know how complicated it is. And when you run a country, it's much more complicated. So let's understand and, you know, view things in that light when we look at it. So India, like I said, needs to become part of global supply chain. We can move on, Ayush, from this slide and go on to the next one. So this is basically IBM report, which I'm just going to read out a few nuggets of it. 70% of the venture capitalists indicated that startups cannot find employees with the right skills. Great opportunity for you guys. If they cannot find the right skills, let's find those skills and get ready for it. Can we be that the venture capitalists looking for people that startups are looking for? Great place to work. Startups are a great place to work for a number of you. So it's not about brand. It's about the quality of work you do, the role you have, what you will learn. Please understand, what will you learn? How do you become a better person? How do you become a more knowledgeable person? That is very good. 61% of India's higher education leaders said that the education system is unable to respond to societal changes, society's changing needs. This is very important, because I did not talk about it, but even education systems will need to completely revamp themselves. See, look at it like this. All guy like your institute, you all do your MBA classes, you have case studies, you have 50 years history, and then you said, okay, this was the data, empirical data we had, and this is what results come out of it. All that is gone. Post-COVID, there is going to be no 50 years history. It's going to be very different. And I think one will have to develop case studies very much on the go. There will have to be a very new way. Like, for example, I'll tell you, I grew up, our company grew up putting ERP systems into various companies. It took 2 years, 3 years to put these large ERP implementations with large giant companies. Today, nobody has the time. Everything is on the cloud. So that whole business has gone to zero. And a new business has emerged, cloud implementation. So I think the world is, so similarly, education will have to move on and say, how do we educate how do we educate the kids in a very, very different way, that they become much more knowledgeable and fit for the jobs. So I would throw in practical experience. So how do we actually get them more practical experiences? Can we get these SMEs as MSMEs into our campus and do real life studies, real life examples? Post-COVID, good time for these colleges to come in, MBA colleges to come in and say, okay, let's do a case study and work with you and hold your hand through post-COVID. Great learning experience for the children, for the students, great learning experience for the company, where the company also gets a benefit. So these are some ways which one would have to think about it. How do we take our learning to the practical part of the world? And just imagine somebody going for an interview and said, okay, I worked with 3 SMEs or MSMEs and we worked on this project and this is what we did. Will that guy be hired immediately? Let me tell you that. And he or she will be, you know, in the front running of those jobs. So I think the other one is traditional education models which have taken place for centuries are now being disrupted, that we all know. Corporate recruiters reported difficulty in finding applicants with sufficient practical experience. Exactly the point I was making. Less practical experience. And I think this is where it is coming out. See, because the one thing when we were recruiting people, when I've done a lot of recruiting myself personally, what we found, we had to train a lot. Let me tell you, in Arthur Andersen, when we took people, nobody was allowed to come and join the company till they didn't go through a 15-day mandatory training course outside the firm. And that was to actually Andersenize the person, to get them to understand what Andersen stands for, how do we work, what is our business ethics, what are the ways in which we operate. And just to share with you, because I've only had consulting experience, I would say that there has never been and there never will be a firm of the quality of Arthur Andersen. I mean, the one thing that they actually believed in was high quality delivery. And if you deliver high quality delivery, you are premium. And when you are premium, you command premium prices. And when you command premium prices, you pay premium salaries. And when you pay premium salaries, you hire the best talent in the world. So it is a whole supply chain that actually worked in helping you get the best talent, and that talent delivered great value to clients. And it required a lot of hard work. So we only see the glamour. We only see, oh, the glamour part of it. But there is a lot of sweat and blood which actually goes before you get in. Can we go to the next slide, Ayush? So this one is about attributes and skills required in current times. I think very important is working smarter. How articulate are you? Imagine just going for that interview, how well dressed you are. We keep talking about, do you make an impact? Do you have a professional presence? Very important. You need to stand out. You need to stand out when you're sitting there. You need to resonate with them. People should feel that when they are talking to you, they find in you qualities of being compassionate. You're able to relate to things, and you're able to help in the job. I was reading this thing as to these Navy SEALs, the US Navy SEALs, which is the highest thing in the Navy, in the US. People who go, they are the ones who actually got Osama bin Laden and all that. So they are the highest trained people. So they don't take the tallest and the strongest and the toughest. The one quality they look for in the Navy SEAL, is he willing to be in the service of his fellow comrade? Is he willing to give his life for his
Mr. Rekhy, I believe your video has disconnected. We can't hear you.
So it will be very important. Next one. Okay, video started or no?
Yeah, now it started.
Okay, sorry, somebody's phone came and this phone seems to link to this.
Okay.
The next important quality, I think, is vision. They will look for, are you visionary? Do you think beyond your nose? Or do you think of the immediate? So I'm just saying, you're going into your job market, they are going to look, are you a visionary? Do you have practical wisdom? Do you have a positive mindset? You see, when you go through life, you will have to relate cases where you were down and out, and how did you deal with the situation? They are going to check your practical. It's not about which committee you were, where you were. They're going to ask you, how did you actually deal with real life situations? That is going to be very important. And one other quality, I'm just going and then I'll get to the skill sets. The other quality they would look for is humility. How humble are you in the way you come across? You're not overselling yourself. You actually believe that, yes, there is more to this world than just yourself. But I think humility is a very great quality. And one of the biggest destroyers, let me tell you, in corporate life and amongst professionals is ego. And one of the things I always tell people, take the ego and throw it. Yeah, somebody's got a question. Should we take the question as we come?
Whatever's convenient to you, sir.
I'm okay, because if he's on the slide and he's asked a question, I'm okay. If it's relating to the slide, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, we can do it right now. I'm sure there'll be questions at the end also.
How would businesses, okay, I'll have to go to that screen, right? His question, Ayush, can you see that question, what he's asked, Dipansh? Come to me only.
No, I can see it. How would businesses change the way they operate in the period post COVID-19?
Yeah. So actually, I don't have all the answers to this, but if I had, I would have possibly been the richest man on this earth. But I can tell you that businesses will need to become much more technology savvy. They will become much more automated. The one thing that businesses have realized, that in order to survive in a lockdown period, in any kind of such situation, you should be able to carry on your business. Because let me tell you, this COVID is not going away. It's going to come back again and again. But this time, it is going to be very different when it comes back, because we'll be more battle ready, because we have learned from it. So there won't be so many lockdowns, etc. So businesses will continue, but you will have to learn how to operate in a contactless environment. I mean, I'll give you a small example. I was listening to one of these speakers. He was talking of a New York high-end restaurant who's not allowed to operate. But what they did, instead of closing down, they provided that high-end experience into people's homes. So their waiters became delivery boys, and they give you the exact experience that you would get in a high-end restaurant, but in your home. So people sometimes need that quality. So I'm just telling you that different industries will have to operate differently, depends in which, how automated they are. The first thing people will have to do is get automated, get their systems up and running, making sure that people can work from home and you can still operate, make sure that you are able to reach your customers, your goods, your warehouses, because new things are going to emerge. For example, if shopping malls are going to become historical, then can we use those huge parking lots for, because if tomorrow everything is going to be e-commerce, then all these, you need huge storage. So can these parking lots and these other big spaces become huge storage facilities where things can be kept? And tomorrow, if multiplexes are out of businesses, then what do people do with these multiplexes? Do they use them for very different purposes, like maybe even high-end storage of material? So things will change post-COVID, and I think that's going to be a very different skill set, very different ways in which companies will operate. So the other important skill sets are complex problem solving ability, the critical thinking, creativity. Somebody spoke about creativity. Yes, creativity and innovation is going to be very important. We have spoken. Okay, somebody has a question. Can we take it?
Sure.
Can you put your question out, please?
Before that, there's a couple of other questions. One of them is, in a country like ours, which has very uneven coverage in terms of internet, can we go online in terms of education to develop skill sets?
So, like I said, the one big business that will actually grow is going to be internet actually, and there will have to be ways in which how the Wi-Fi or the internet can actually go to different parts of India. We're all living in very modern parts of India where we don't, even here we have issues. Actually, so many times you don't get the bandwidth. So I think internet business, internet coverage is going to be a huge demand for putting it across the country. And I think government will, there will have to be a two-pronged strategy of, the corporate sector. We're talking of social. This could be one way in which you could actually create, empower people with the internet and then be able to ensure that the education actually goes there. And there's a standing example of in China where online education company, a guy who started free teaching 2 subjects, maths and English, in the villages in China, actually created the whole internet, was able to get across to vast majorities, and it became a subscription-based model, and today is very highly valued. But the point is, education will go to the last mile if we are able to get our connectivity right. So that is going to be one big industry that will grow. Any other question, Ayush?
So there's one question on how labor laws are being eased over Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, and do you feel it will turn further exploitative for exploited workers as states try to protect their private sector investments?
See, I think honestly, there will have to be changes in some ways in which businesses get done, because also let's understand that there is only so much of money. India's biggest problem is lack of capital today. India's growth is getting hindered because we don't have capital. As a country, we don't have capital, we don't have money. And that is one reason why even the second economic package is taking time to come, because one is trying to find where do you have the resources to put it together. So I think the reality of life is people will need to get it's a two-pronged strategy. It's not a very simple answer to put together. People will get exploited. I'm not sure that's one way of looking at it, but the other way of looking at it is, and I keep saying it to everybody, that to remain in a job, you need to be relevant and you need to keep inventing yourself. And I think companies are also responsible for ensuring, and that's why I put that reskilling and skilling. jobs, and one could see how it actually gets done. And I've actually got one very nice slide at the end on a blue collar worker example of what the future will hold. So I think it's important that we get there on that. So I think I'll not go through the rest of the things. I think most of you would have read it. Ethics, integrity, very important. Empathy is very important. Digital collaboration. How do you collaborate digitally? Okay, we collaborated earlier as we worked, but how do you collaborate digitally where you never met the guy? Innovative, out-of-box thinking, service orientation, negotiation skills, infinite thinking. Let me not undermine this word, infinite thinking. Those people who think finitely will also have a job which is finite. So you will need to also change your behavior, how you operate in an online environment and not having the set out there. So any other questions? I can take it now.
I think we can continue for now. And
okay, sure. Okay. So, so let me just finish this slide. There are one or two important things: your willingness to reinvent, cognitive flexibility of the people, high level of self-discipline, very important. Are you going to self-discipline yourself? Because, you know, one of these big work from home issues are, because you're working in an environment which is not an office environment, are you as disciplined as when you would sit in an office? So I think these are self-discipline which comes in. I've got a job to do. I'm getting paid for it. Am I doing a job? Because let me tell you, if you don't do it, you won't have the job. So you can have a little bit of fun. That's what they say. There's a very nice saying which I read, that when you work hard, your life becomes easy. And when you lead an easy life, when you work easy, your life becomes hard. And I think that's something that is not going to go away anywhere. I mean, whether in a post-COVID or a pre-COVID world, but I think it's important that we realize that discipline is very important, self-discipline. Are you the first to come and the last to go? And very, very important. It's not about timing. It's not about putting in, but you put in those extra hours to make a difference of where you are. Yeah, Ayush, we can go to the next slide, which is, so in this slide, I've tried to put together the way forward for the government, for the industry, academia, and also what do some individuals need to do. Now, this is not 100% there. These are few indicative things. From the government's point, how do you future-proof the education system? Is it ready for what we want? You need a unified database, policy level changes. Skill development is very important. Skill development programs, and not the way we understand it just for blue-collar jobs. There is skill development even required for the white-collar jobs. How your skills, like I explained to you what is skills. Incentivizing corporates who are hiring skilled people. So, especially in emerging technologies, how do we incentivize people to start hiring it? What can industries do? We spoke about it, skilling, reskilling initiatives, increasing women participation in the workforce, increased involvement with education institutions. You know, the industry and academia have never come together in any big way. There have been few cases, okay, here and there, but never in a big way. I think now the time has come for them to really cross paths and work very closely together to say, how do I develop the most relevant program for jobs, for fitment purposes? And it's very, very important. I've worked with a lot on this National Skills Development Council, on the various skill council that I've been formed. There's a huge gap, let me tell you, between how people are getting trained and what the industry needs. So all this will need to get into reality. Otherwise, we'll have people with certificates and not having the real knowledge. How do we use technology to train a carpenter? How do we actually put it in a way that he knows how to cut it right, how to cut the wood or to fix the door frame? And similarly for electricians, even going down to that level, what I'm saying. We need to take active role in matching skills and jobs. So these are what industries may need to do. As far as the educational institutions need to do, they need to ensure that that they have actually adopted technology. And I would say first time the education institutions are being challenged on their own faculty. Are their faculty actually equipped? Are their faculty actually trained to teach the new system, or are we teaching some outdated courses to people for which their jobs. So I think it's very important that educational institutions work on that. I would say a strong overlay of ethics into our teaching. It is there. There maybe we are doing some ethics, but around the world it is found that there are not too much of these being taught enough as it should be. Because let me tell you, when these people come into corporate life, one suffers there, some of them. So I think there has to be a much stronger teaching on this, inculcate the right behavior. I would say practical experience, what I spoke about, a new mindset which is flexible and responsive. This is for what education institution can do. Life has changed post-COVID, so we need many more post-COVID examples, and it would be good to start working with industry as they are coming together, so you can actually have post-COVID case studies to teach your students, and then just some theoretical kind of case studies. Emphasis on collaboration and interdisciplinary approach is going to be very, very important as the educators go into that, into their new life. As far as students have to come, it's lifelong learning, like I said. So you need to first unlearn, learn, and relearn. And this has to be a continuous process all the time, because what you learn today, earlier I would say that to remain relevant, every 2 years you need to reinvent yourself. Now I say that every 6 months you need to reinvent yourself and adopt, acquire a new skill, a new way which you can take. And your best competitors yourself. How do you become better than yourself each time instead of looking at your neighbor? Agile mindset, lifelong learning, I've already told you. Do what you like and build deep skills. Whatever you like, build deep skills in that. Take a subject which you really like, because I'll tell you, once you're passionate about something, nobody can stop you, and you can reach levels where nobody else can reach. And keep reinventing yourself to remain relevant all the time. So these would be some. Can we go to the last 2 slides? Can we go to the next slide, please? And
Yes, sir.
so this is one example I'm going to give you of a gig economy. This is just pictorially depicted here. There is this girl, Nazia, who's got a supply chain, who's a supply chain expert, has got a mandate from a leading FMCG company to redesign their hybrid supply chain within the next 2 months. So what does she have with her? She then is, she opens up the National Digital Library of India. I presume there will be one at some point of time, where she can look for the resources, uses the artificial intelligence aided systems. She could identify the right skill sets of people who can join her on this project. She then sits down and fixes their rates and creates a scheduled work plan, how she will work with them. She's never met them, or everything is done online. She doesn't even know who they are. So, and using what I'm saying, using this pictorially depicted, I mean, it's easily said, I mean, it's much more complicated than this, but working over with these 7 people who she identified, she is able to put together the project plan that is required. And she got the skills and resources, because this supply chain required tax experts, it required people who understand the government, it required a redesign of the thing, and also understanding that particular sector in which she was operating in. So she needed people who had warehousing experts, she needed procurement experts, she needed freight advisor, she needed a financial advisor, and she needed people who understood compliance and regulations, and of course project management specialists who could put whole project together. And she was able to deliver this project to the client on time. So this is just a pictorial this thing of somebody who is in the gig economy, doesn't know people, but is able to access through it, using all the tools that are available, getting people together onto a platform and saying, okay, I'm going to deliver a solution to the client. The client has paid me X amount of money, and she has now worked with a team to pay them whatever she has to pay. Can we go to the next slide? And this is the last slide, because I hope I've not bored you all with.
No, sir, it's a pleasure.
So the last slide is just on a blue collar work. I mean, we think that these blue collar workers are going to be the same. So here's a guy called Hari, who has taken up a vocational training in machine learning and automation early in his career, and took pride in being a blue collared worker. He specifically liked cleaning the drains of Delhi. One day he gets information that the city systems are choked. the drains are clogged. So he does a visual inspection. You can see this machine out here, does a visual inspection using inbuilt cameras, notices whatever the revelers had thrown some plastic plates and clogged the draining system. He remotely activates the whole thing using this technology, which is there again, and then pumps it out into a biodegradable kind of thing. So what I'm trying to tell you, this is where the future of work is going to move. So even the people who are in blue collar jobs are not going to be touched by technology. And there are enough equipments and other things available. Today, these may seem distant out here, but number of these are being used in more developed countries. We can see some of these machines getting used in India. I mean, you would have seen that sanitizer machine used in Delhi, which it was there on, at least on the Twitter, I saw it. A disinfectant kind, which China used in a big way actually in getting their cities back. So I think one would see, so this is all that I had to present. I'm now very happy to take any question answers further that you all may have, so that we can take it.
So there's quite a few questions that have piled up. We can take a few selected ones. There's one on how under a contactless
Can you
working...
choose them? So why don't you choose them, Ayush, and just read them out so that I can then try and answer. Listen, first of all, let me give you one preface. I have limited knowledge. I will give you answers to what I have, and to which I don't have, I will tell you I don't have an answer. So might as well, in the spirit of transparency, be upfront to you.
So there's one question that under contactless working style, what happens to our collective morality if we do not get to meet colleagues and do not forge interpersonal relationships?
This is a question I'm asking myself. How do you build interpersonal relationships? Because I felt that was one of my big strengths. So person like me will be a complete flop in this current world. I think ways will come around it. When we talk of contactless kind of working, we are talking maintaining that social distance, but that doesn't mean that you don't behave in a very decent way with the people that you're dealing with. Let's see when people come back to work, how this social distancing is going to be maintained. Because yesterday I was seeing an interview of SpiceJet chairman Ajay Singh, and he was saying that in these planes, distancing, social distancing or physical distancing, I call it physical, they call it social distancing, I still call it physical distancing, is not possible because the distance between two seats is only 15 inches. And how do you maintain that 6 feet distance? So literally you're saying the plane is going to operate at 1/3 or 20% its capacity. So he believes that it may not happen in that way. I think time is going to tell. At the moment, all of us are reacting and responding in a particular way. The disease, the virus is very real, and it does spread from human to human contact. There is no doubt about it. And but we need to be smart. We need to see how we can use the current situation of managing to keep our social. That's why when they say social distancing, I don't agree with it. The word, they should have said physical distancing. Social, I think we need to build our social equilibrium with people, stay in touch with them on the phone, through these mediums, through the different FaceTime, etc. How do we retain our contact with people and continue to build the relationship? I think that physical meeting will be very important in my view. How and when it will happen, time will only tell. Because if we find the vaccine, I think it will be life as usual, because it's like any other disease. There's a vaccine, there's a cure, and if people get it, they can be cured. Then I think people will start moving much more very differently. But let me tell you one thing. Whatever we come back to, we are not going to come back to the life we had pre-March. February, January, all these places, when we were having a very different lifestyle, changed in March. When we come back, it is going to be very different from what we had in January or February. That, at least let me tell you, for some time. And sometime it means we don't know how long.
There is one question from Mr. Kirit Das, who's from the Oil India Management Association, who says that if we are ready to take the manufacturing business from China, then what does the government need to do? As a lot of experts are saying, this is the time to aggressively pitch to companies that are leaving the Chinese market. Then how do we position ourselves with that?
So, like I said, so there are. So let me tell you very honestly, I've spoken to a number of consulting firms, and that is beyond KPMG, who are dealing with corporates from the Western world who want to come to India or exploring. Let me tell you, not wanting, are exploring options. It is not so many. First. Second, companies are re-evaluating their China strategy. A lot of it is doing with emotional. It's at the moment very emotional because everybody believes that everything started there and the whole world has got hit by it. Secondly, I think companies also realize that they put too many eggs into one basket, so they need a BCP. So that's what I said. India can become a great alternate BCP. Just to put the context out here, when the US-China trade war started, everybody at that time also thought India would benefit, but the country which actually benefited a huge out of that was Vietnam. A lot of companies actually moved their manufacturing, part of their manufacturing base. So I was talking to this India-China expert, and he was telling a lot of companies invested a huge amount of their turnover comes out of China. And for them to move is going to be a huge loss because China will say, okay, fine, this is our land, our building, you can go. So, and then companies will have to decide whether it's okay, worthwhile giving. And is there an alternate site which could be better? India has a long way to go before they can attract anybody, let me tell you. We have huge challenges around our regulatory environments. We have huge challenges around the way we give permissions, the way things happen out here. While on the ease of doing business, we have done very well. From 140, we have come down to 70. But I think on the ground, there are huge amount of challenges which happen. I think the government is working on it. I know teams of people who are working on it. Because please understand, India is not one central government. There are state governments also. So everybody has to sing the same tune. So when people invest in India, it's no more investing in India. They are investing in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, or wherever. And they will have to decide on central policies as well as on state level policies. And I think the government will need to do some huge amount of changes, or even this will pass us by and it will go to some other country. The only attractive thing about India is two things. Number one, we have the market, huge market, 1.3 billion people. We have the very good talent. We have very good, we have a decent, we are a democracy. We have a good judicial system. I mean, good in whatever context, but we have got laws and regulations which are there. And let me tell you, the current laws and regulations need some serious change. In fact, the GST is very, very, very difficult law, and people find it very complicated to deal with it. And the last one which I want to say is this Inspector Raj, which is hurting a lot of multinationals. But I talk to them now, and a lot of them are much more open after I left KPMG India, and I talk to them. They're pretty open in their conversations, and they are going through some hell in terms of how some of these regulators actually harass them, and for no reason. So I think this attitude has to go, because if it doesn't go, people are not going to come to this country. Irrespective of how big market you have, they will still sell to India. There are different ways. Apple didn't come to India. Still everybody buys the Apple phone in India, right? So people will manufacture it somewhere else and still make the money out of it. Because just to give you one small example on this Apple. So because I was dealing with Apple and asking them, why don't they open in India? And they said, we don't want to come with our hands tied. And the government told them that they need to do 30% sourcing to domestic market. They are saying we sell an Apple phone at $1,000 or whatever at that time. And our total cost is $200. So how do I do 30% of outsourcing on $1,000? That means $300 I have to outsource to who? My entire cost of the entire phone is $200. So the point is, I think the government also has to realize that certain people will sell on their brand. And there's a huge brand value which comes with something. which is huge amount of investment in developing the R&D and all that, for which an Apple phone. So it all gets written off over the period of. So I think there has to be a more practical way of looking at some of this. IKEA, I know, for example, had this huge challenge of 30% outsourcing. So they managed to get a 5-year exemption. But after 5 years, the government is going to come and ask them, now, where's your 30% sourcing? So, and it's taking them huge amount of effort in trying to get their stores up and running. So, so I think people, it's not very easy. People still want to come to India because of the market, but if they have other options, they will go there.
I'll take the last 3-4 questions, sir. You've been very kind to have an extended session. First of all,
I hope I'm not taking your time, because your next session and all that is that.
No, absolutely. This is a pleasure. We could go on all day.
Yeah.
The next question, sir, is from Mr. Rajagopalan. He is the media advisor in the Department of Pension and Pensioners Welfare.
Sure.
His question is that in this time of a shift in social interaction, what is the role of the media in terms of the changing dynamic with individuals, also with organizations, with the government? So where should the media position itself?
See, I think I'm going to say something which may be a little bit controversial, but I would rather say it straight. I think the first thing that should get out from media is fake news. I mean, the one thing I thought that COVID has taught us a lesson, that we have fought against environment. We acquired so much land, and now the environment is now telling you, listen guys, better behave yourself. And we saw it. As we got locked down, the air got cleaner. The flowers suddenly started blooming in all parts of India. Beautiful flowers. At least, I don't know whether they're true pictures, but the pictures to me showed that in different parts of India, huge amount of, you can see the mountain tops, you can see all of this. So I think a lot of that happened there. So I think the role of media, and I always thought that all of us, or most of us, will emerge out of COVID as better human beings than what we went in, and more reasonable and caring and much more, because actually it brought a lot of families together. It brought a lot of people back into saying there is life beyond work, but media continues to play a very, unfortunately, some of the media, I won't say all, you can't generalize. I think the media needs to play a right role now of how to bring people together, take away all this hatred and lies that they actually spread with fake news, and at least keep the news genuine and straightforward. And I think everybody, once the media takes that role as the fourth pillar of democracy in its truest sense, I think it is going to help the country actually resolve. Media needs to be in the position to question every action. And I think it is important that, you have some of the media screaming their heads off. That should stop. I mean, I think they need to relearn the education, because a lot of people watch it. In fact, I've stopped watching television, just for everybody's knowledge. I've stopped watching television because I just find it so distasteful and an insult to one's level of intelligence, some of the debates that they do. But I think it is important that media gets its credibility back and actually starts reporting the right things, and starts reporting exactly what is right and what is good for the country, and move people to actually collaborate, tell people to come together. I think we need to get, I mean, we are Indians first. We are Indians first. And if we understand that we are Indians first, I think we will be able to become better human beings, and then talk about this. So role of media is to be the fourth pillar of democracy and actually question everything that is for the larger good of this country, larger good of the citizens, irrespective. Just look at it like this. I mean, I've just given a simple example. The migrant workers, I want to know how much did media cover them? Or how much media covered them? They are citizens of this country. Why have they not been covered? Why have they not been given the rightful place in where they are? And I mean, so many people walking on the road, and 6 weeks. I mean, even now, pregnant women, children I mean, it makes a sorry state. At least let me tell you, as a citizen watching some of that, makes a sorry state.
Sir, Dr. Nitin Malik has a question. He's
Yeah.
asking which area would be most lucrative to invest in post-COVID impact?
So if you ask me, I think today the market is where it is. Market is very, very invest in. Are you talking from a share price, share point of view?
I would believe so.
So if you ask me, if you're a long-term investor, I would say pharma. You can easily go into some of the good pharma, but don't go into. See, pharma is the big pharma, healthcare, anything to do with biotechnology, anything to do with biotech. I would say these are going to be the future industries. I would say anything to do with technology also one should look at. But again, I would say look at the long-term players. Even if pharma, you're looking at it, look at it from a 3-year horizon. Because what's happened is, if you look at all the pharma shares, they're already at their peak today. They're at all-time high, 52-week high or whatever. So there won't be any money that you'll make in the short term. But if you are here in a long-term investor, we can see India pharma growing and actually your investment hopefully becoming far bigger than what it is. So I would say anything related with post-COVID. So don't go into short term because nobody's made money in the short term in the market. Ultimately, yeah, you can say anything to do with sanitization or post-COVID kind of industries will be very good in the short term. But we really don't know how quickly they will disappear also the way they come in, you know. So let's not, I'm not a short-term player. So I look at long-term. If you ask me personally, I would say pharma, technology. I would even go to the extent of saying telecom because everything is going to happen on telecommunications. So these would be the industries that are going to actually rule the world.
And so there's a lot, there's one question which I'm going to combine a lot of questions into one
Sure.
question, which is a lot of our BBA students, and there's a couple of people from executive MBA who are asking that at this point, what does the future look like for students especially? Should they look for an MBA? Should they look for an executive MBA? Should they go into jobs and do skill building?
So, see, I'll tell you a very difficult question to answer because it's the future of the kids, right? And the future of people who are looking at it. And I don't want to be prophesying of something which I'm not an expert at. But I can only tell you from my I'm going to give you a very personal experience, so take it for what it's worth. If I was sitting where you are sitting today, I would go to reskill myself and retool myself. I would do an MBA or a BBA or a MBA, whatever, but on the side of it, I would train myself to get some deep technology skills also embedded. So today it cannot be one course. Today, I think soft skills have become as important as doing your MBA. Like I said, you have to be articulate, you have to presentation skills, how do you put your point across? I think those are going to be as much as content is important. I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background. As this is the fallacy of working from home, right? So so I think it is going to be. I would say continue with your education, but make sure you get yourself skilled on 2-3 very specific things. But please don't go where everybody's going. Please don't go. Go with things which actually you like. And when you become a deep specialist, so when you go and talk, you actually talk from your heart. You are actually talking as a specialist because I can tell you when you love what you're doing, you go much beyond the call of duty. And one small for all the students, everyone out here, I think just put in that 10% extra. You may not earn the 10% extra. Put in that 10% extra. I can tell you from my personal experience, effort and hard work never goes unrewarded. You may not get the reward immediately, but through life gives you enough rewards. Nobody's ever come and told me what extra salary or extra bonus, except one guy in my entire life who came and said, you paid me a higher bonus. But I think people don't say that, but I can only tell you from my personal life, water finds its level. And every single effort you put in gets rewarded in some way, not maybe in the same company, some other company. And I think put in that 10% extra. And one last advice to all the students, never sell anything that you will not buy. Never ever sell anything that you will not buy. Be original, and I think you will succeed in life. That's it.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a wonderful session. Every word of it, every slide just reflected all of your knowledge of all of these years. I think all of us are a little bit overwhelmed right now by the knowledge that we've gained over all this time. It's very kind of you to also take all the questions and address the students' aspirations and questions very patiently.
Sure. Thank you.
On behalf of NDIM and on behalf of our chairperson also, she's also been looking forward to this session, Mrs. Bindu Kumar.
Sure.
And on behalf of all of us, on behalf of all of the students, sir, we are very, very grateful for this session from you. And now I know that you also keep visiting Delhi and Gurgaon also. So, sir, we would love to have you on campus.
I have my second home in Gurgaon, by the way. So, and while at KPMG India, my office was in DLF Cyber City. So for memory's sake, I've taken an office there only now at WeWork. So
Okay.
that's my office. That's my office actually. Yeah.
Yes, so
So I
then
keep
we will definitely get you on campus, sir, because as enlightening as this is, it is also a completely different atmosphere when you have the person in flesh and blood.
Sure.
And it has been an absolute privilege on behalf of all of us to have you here. Thank you so much, sir.
All the best to all of you and wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank you so
inviting
much.
me. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.